You call it healing. You call it main character energy. You call it self-care. But what if I told you the soft lighting, the journaling, the candles, the quiet nights alone, what if that whole aesthetic was hiding something your brain is desperately trying to warn you about? Right now, while you're watching this, your brain is changing. Not metaphorically. Biologically. Isolation doesn't just make you feel different, it rewires the way you see threat, the way you read people's faces, the way you trust your own thoughts. And the cruelest part? The lonelier you get, the more your mind convinces you that pulling away even further is the answer, when really, it's the trap tightening around you, one quiet night at a time. If you've ever felt strangely safe inside your sadness, if being alone started feeling easier than being seen, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what isolation has done to your mind, and exactly how to take it back. There's a moment that happens to almost everyone, and it's so quiet you barely notice it. It's the moment you start preferring the silence over the conversation. The moment you cancel plans not because you're tired, but because the idea of being around people suddenly feels heavier than staying home. You tell yourself it's temporary. You tell yourself you just need a break. But that break stretches into a week. Then a month. Then it becomes the way you live. What nobody tells you is that loneliness doesn't arrive like a storm. It arrives like a slow fog. You don't notice it rolling in because it feels so much like peace at first. No demands. No small talk. No one needing anything from you. Just you, your room, and the comfortable hum of nothing happening. And in that nothing, something starts to shift. Your brain, the same brain that once thrived on eye contact and laughter and the warmth of being around people who know you, starts adapting to the absence. It starts treating isolation as the new normal. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Neuroscientists have found that prolonged loneliness doesn't just affect your mood. It physically alters your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for detecting threat. That means the longer you isolate, the more your brain starts perceiving the outside world as dangerous. Not because anything actually changed out there. But because your mind, starved of connection, starts treating people as a threat instead of a comfort. The very thing that could heal you starts to feel like the thing you need to avoid. This is why so many people who isolate for a long time describe a strange paradox. They miss people, but they also dread being around them. They want connection, but the moment it's offered, something in them recoils. That's not weakness. That's not you being broken. That is your nervous system doing exactly what isolation trained it to do. And maybe right now, as you're hearing this, something inside you just recognized itself. Maybe you felt that exact pull. The wanting and the avoiding, both at once, both unbearably real. If that's you, I need you to hear this clearly. You are not the only one. And you are not too far gone to come back from this. Because what's happening in your mind right now has a name, it has a cause, and most importantly, it has a way out. But to find that way out, you first have to understand exactly what isolation has been doing beneath the surface, in places you can't see, but absolutely feel. Let's talk about what loneliness actually does to your brain, because the science here is far more disturbing than most people realize. Researchers at UCLA found that chronic loneliness activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Your brain doesn't just feel sad when you're isolated. It registers it as injury. As if you've been physically wounded, even though no one ever touched you. This is why heartbreak from isolation can feel so unbearably physical. The tightness in your chest. The heaviness in your limbs. The way getting out of bed starts to feel like lifting something far heavier than your own body. That's not dramatic. That's not you being weak. That is literally pain, registered by the same systems that process a broken bone. But it goes deeper than pain. Isolation also shrinks something called your prefrontal cortex activity, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, self-control, and emotional regulation. Which means the longer you stay isolated, the harder it becomes to make clear decisions about your own life. You start spiraling in your own head with no outside voice to interrupt the loop. Have you ever noticed how the longer you're alone, the louder your own thoughts get? How a single worry can spin into 10 worries, then 20, with nothing and no one to tell you it's not as bad as it feels. That's not your imagination running wild. That's an unchecked nervous system, left without the regulation that human connection normally provides. And here's something almost no one talks about. Isolation doesn't just affect your mind in the moment. Studies have linked chronic loneliness to a 30% increased risk of early mortality, comparable to the health risks of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Let that sink in. Loneliness isn't just an emotional state. It is a measurable, physical threat to how long you live. So when you tell yourself, "I'm fine being alone," ask yourself honestly whether that's truth, or whether it's your wounded brain trying to protect itself from the risk of getting hurt again. Because withdrawal often disguises itself as strength. It wears the mask of independence. But underneath, it's often just fear wearing a calmer name. If any part of this feels uncomfortably familiar, that discomfort is not a bad sign. It means something in you is finally being honest. And that honesty, as painful as it is right now, is the very first step toward a mind that no longer treats connection as danger. Here's something that might be hard to hear, but it needs to be said. The loneliness aesthetic you see online, the cozy montages of solo coffee walks, the soft piano music, the captions about healing alone, they didn't appear by accident. They were built, packaged, and monetized because isolation is profitable. The algorithm doesn't care if you're actually healing. It only cares if you keep watching. And the tragic irony is that the more isolated you feel, the more time you spend consuming content that romanticizes that isolation, which makes you feel even more disconnected from real, breathing, imperfect human connection. It's a loop. A beautifully filtered, softly lit, completely silent loop. And the longer you stay in it, the more normal it starts to feel. You start believing that needing people is somehow less evolved than not needing them. That the version of you who doesn't text first, who doesn't reach out, who handles everything alone in silence, is the strong version. But ask yourself honestly. Does it actually feel like strength? Or does it feel like exhaustion wearing strength as a costume? Real strength doesn't require you to disappear. Real healing doesn't ask you to disconnect from everyone who could actually help you heal. Somewhere along the way, solitude got rebranded as superiority, and silence got rebranded as peace, even when that silence was actually screaming underneath. This is the part where I need you to be honest with yourself, not with me, not with anyone watching this, just with yourself. Are you actually at peace in your solitude? Or have you simply gotten so used to being alone that you forgot what it felt like to be truly seen by another person? Because there's a difference between solitude that restores you and isolation that slowly empties you. Solitude has an exit door. You choose it, and you can leave whenever you want. Isolation doesn't have a door anymore. It has walls that got taller every single day you didn't reach out, until reaching out itself started to feel impossible. If you've built walls like that without even realizing it, I want you to know something important right now. Walls that were built brick by brick can also be taken down brick by brick. It doesn't require a dramatic transformation. It just requires one small, honest move back toward the world you've been avoiding. So how does this actually start to reverse? Because understanding the problem means nothing if you don't know the way back, and the way back is not what most people expect. It doesn't start with forcing yourself into a crowded room or pretending you're suddenly fine with constant social interaction. It starts somewhere much smaller, much quieter, much more honest than that. It starts with naming what's actually happening, instead of numbing it. Most people who are isolated don't say, "I'm lonely." They say, "I'm just tired." They say, "I just need space." They say, "People drain me." These phrases aren't lies exactly, but they are often a softer way of avoiding a harder truth. The truth that you miss being known, and that scares you more than admitting it. Once you can name it honestly, even just to yourself, something shifts. The fog starts thinning. And from there, the next step is almost embarrassingly small. It's not a grand reunion with everyone you've avoided. It's one text. One phone call. One 5-minute conversation that you almost talk yourself out of sending. Neuroscience actually backs this up. Studies show that even brief positive social interactions, as short as 10 minutes, can measurably lower cortisol levels and begin reactivating the brain's reward pathways that isolation had dimmed. You don't need a complete social transformation overnight. You need one small spark to remind your nervous system that connection is not a threat. This is also where movement matters more than people realize. Something as simple as walking outside, where other humans exist around you, even without speaking to a single one, has been shown to reduce the threat response your isolated brain has built up. Your nervous system starts relearning that people aren't dangerous just by being near them again. And then there's the part most people skip entirely. Forgiving yourself for how far you withdrew. Shame about your isolation often keeps people isolated longer, because reaching out feels like admitting failure. But there is no failure here. There is only a nervous system that did what it thought it needed to do to survive a hard season. You are allowed to come back slowly. You are allowed to rebuild trust with people at your own pace. Nobody healed in a single day, and nobody reconnects in a single conversation either. What matters is that you stop confusing the absence of pain with the presence of peace, and start choosing real connection over comfortable distance. So here's where this leaves you. Not with a list of facts to forget by tomorrow, but with a decision that only you can make. Because everything we just talked about, the brain changes, the false comfort, the slow walls you didn't notice yourself building, none of it matters if you close this video and go right back to the same silence you came from. You don't need to fix your entire life tonight. You don't need to suddenly become someone who thrives in crowded rooms or texts back immediately or never wants a quiet night alone again. That's not the goal here, and chasing that would just be trading one extreme for another. The goal is simpler, and so much more human than that. The goal is to stop letting fear dress itself up as peace. To stop calling withdrawal healing when it's actually hiding. To finally tell the truth to yourself about whether you're choosing solitude, or whether solitude has quietly chosen you, one cancelled plan and one unanswered message at a time. If something in this video made your chest feel tight, if some part of you recognized itself in every section we just walked through, that recognition is not a coincidence and it's not weakness either. It's your mind finally being honest with you after a long time of staying quiet about what it actually needed. So before you close this tab, before you go back to your day, I want you to do one thing. Just one. Pick a single person, someone you've been meaning to talk to, and send them something. It doesn't have to be deep. It doesn't have to explain where you've been. It can be as simple as, "Hey, thinking of you." That one message is not small. That one message is you telling your own nervous system that connection is safe again. That one message is the first brick coming down from a wall you built to protect yourself from something that already happened, in a past that no longer needs guarding. You were never meant to disappear quietly into a softly lit room and call it healing. You were meant to be known, to be reached for, to be loved loudly by people who notice when you go quiet. So go be loud again. Go be inconvenient again. Go be human again. Because the world was never supposed to feel this empty, and you were never supposed to carry it alone.